So, I am about to be discussing Season 2, Episode 1 of Interview with the Vampire, entitled, What Can the Damn Really Say to the Damn? Boy, boy, boy. This, the season started out pretty good. I'm not even gonna lie. So, to get into spoilers, this whole episode was about them traveling across the world trying to find other vampires during a time period right after World War II. Pretty sure they hinted that it was right after World War II. Um, so it took them to Ukraine, and then they eventually got into Romania. Okay, and I ain't even gonna lie, this episode was good. It was a point in the episode where they were traveling and they were trying to get into Ukraine, and that Ukrainian soldiers, when they told them they were citizens of the country, they said, okay, black Ukrainians. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, I would have been saying the same thing. But they just, throughout this episode, trying to find other vampires. And Louis is talking about how he can't dream, and how he doesn't believe Claudia can dream, and he's also been having a lot of hallucinations of Lestat. Um, and hold on a second. They eventually go into this place in Ro- Rome, Romania, and they run into this woman, and she takes them to this, I guess, this shelter, this underground shelter where they talking about people, their food, and nobody has been getting bombarded by missiles and stuff, or bombs because of the war. And they knowing and looking at everyone, and everyone is walking around with crosses on windows and garlic on windows. And Louis mentioned that they are in a place that is known for vampire attacks. Or not known for vampire attacks, known for being a place of vampires. So the people are very much protective, trying to be away from vampires. And Claudia is just so adamant about finding vampires, and Louis doesn't believe any exist. But while they were in the shelter, Claudia managed to sneak out of the shelter because of a dare from the other children in the shelter. And she seen some soldiers out there, and all of a sudden, this creature just started throwing them around and killing them. And when she looked, it looks like a very monstrous type creature. And let me also mention one other thing. When Louis and Claudia was feeding on the humans, they said that the blood was very much so miserable. The people were miserable in that area, and the blood was different. They couldn't get warm from feeding on the blood. It made them feel so much hate, so much sadness, so much emotions. And back to this vampire they met. This vampire was it was monstrous. Like, I mean, it attacked them. It did not think that they were humans, but it attacked them, and it was very possessive about its blood when it was feeding. Um, no, it attacked Claudia because she was out there, and she went back and she told Louis about it, and he didn't believe her. And then they went in the shelter. They found this, I guess, place in the ground where they could sleep, and they woke up to a a very commotion, a very chaotic commotion in the shelter. The people, you could hear the people making a bunch of noise, and they went out and they saw that the woman had been bit on the neck by a vampire. And of course, like I said, everybody in that town, they are very scared and they know about vampire. So they cut the woman head off, which I feel like she wasn't gonna turn. And Louis and Claudia left the shelter to find this vampire that Louis didn't believe about at first. And they went out there and they saw the vampire and he was feeding. And then all of a sudden, this female vampire came and attacked them. And Louis went to attack the female vampire and he was fighting her off. And this monstrous, hideous vampire started to attack Louis, and eventually, I can't remember which one of them, clawed his eyes out, and female vampire went to crying, and she eventually killed the the male monstrous like vampire, and she said that he was her childer, that she turned into a vampire, and she went on ahead and killed him because she said he cannot hunt without his eyes. And she walked off into the forest, and she um Louis said something about that she wanted them to follow her. And so they did. And they eventually went back into a castle where she lived. And this is something that I really liked about this episode. Louis said something. He said these were old world vampires. And they had been feeding off of this miserable blood, and the blood was infecting them so much so to where they could not have no happiness. It made them monstrous like. That's why the vampire was so monstrous, and he was very burnt looking and all that. They said the blood was affecting them, and if Claudia and Louis stayed in that area for long enough, they would eventually be like that as well. So basically, there are different types of vampires, and more so, if you feed upon miserable blood, you will turn into those monstrous type of vampires. This episode was really interesting, and it showed a different side of the vampire world. Like, I know where the story will eventually go to, but I don't know how it's gonna get there because I know about the Anne Rice novels. Um, and as they were talking to this vampire in her castle, which she looked at horrible, I ain't even gonna lie. Louis and Claudia told her about how the new world, the blood is fresh, and they want to take her there. And she agreed, but then all of a sudden, she made some kind of statement, and she said that, I'm trying to think what was the line she said. She said something about we own none of this, and she threw herself in the fire and took her own life. And this really touched Claudia's heart. It really upset her because throughout most of the episode, she was not even talking to Louis because she is still upset that he chose Lestat over her. And in the present day time, Armand and Louis is still talking to the interviewer, and the interviewer is to a point to he feels like something is going on because they introduced the real Rashid, and he's just trying to get to the bottom of it, and Armand is very protective. He does not like that Louis is during the interview, but he eventually came to accept it in the end of this episode. This episode was great. I can't really describe everything that going on in this episode, but I just really gave the main logistics of it. This episode was great. I really enjoyed the episode. It was a strong start to the new season. I'm not even gonna lie. I can't wait to see the whole concept of this season and what they gonna end off with this season, and I hope that it continues even towards the next season because I really want to see Anne Rice's story played out completely on the screen because it hasn't played out completely. No, I want to see the elder vampires and all that, those who must be kept. I want to see them. But this episode, it lets me know that this season will be going in the right direction. And as my score, I'll give this episode, ooh, I probably give this episode a 9 out of 10. Not even gonna lie. It wasn't a just fast paced episode, but it got the job done and it made sure that you will be wanting for more. It had story to it. It's not like one of those episodes where nothing really got accomplished. They did accomplish something in it. They found more vampires and they eventually set up a tone at the end of the episode by Louis telling her, don't give up, they will find some good vampires, because Claudia throughout this episode, she said that she has only known 3 other vampires and all of them treated her like trash. Oh boy, I hate what's gonna come up with her story, but I wanna see how they wanna do it. And yeah, this episode was real good. And I guess I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.